Welcome to Catholic Life as we spotlight ordinary people with extraordinary faith. I am Dina Dow, your host. I am super happy to welcome Michaelyn McGinnis, one of my favorite human persons in the Diocese of Baton Rouge. She's with us to talk about kind of a newer ministry in the diocese called Mary's Hands. It's a dual love program. So we'll get to that in just a minute because you really need to get to know this young lady right here sitting across from me. Thanks for being with us today.
Thank you so much for having me.
You are one of my favorite human persons. Went to high school with one of my daughters and just kind of seeing you flourish and grow, continue to grow in your ministry because you are on fire for the Lord. So tell us a little bit about yourself, where you grew up, about your family, schooling, and what are you doing today?
Yeah. So I grew up here in Baton Rouge native. I went to Our Lady of Mercy for pre-K through 8th, and then I went to St. Joseph's with one of your daughters for 4 years. Then I went to LSU, got 2 degrees there, one in communication, so like how humans interact, and then I got a second degree in religious studies, which seems a little weird coming from LSU, but I got to focus in a path that I wanted. So I chose Christian monasticism.
Oh, yeah.
So we went to field trips at the Abbey and St. Ben's and Notre Dame and the Ursuline Convent. So I really felt at home and got to read a lot of like the early church fathers.
Yeah.
And so after that, I became a missionary with then Dumox, now they're called Echo Community, which is a theology of the body powerhouse. There are retreats that I went on, Echo retreats all over high school. And after I left college, I became a missionary with them for a few months. And after that, I came back, was working at a gym, was a nanny for a little bit, and then got a phone call from a priest friend of mine that said, hey, I think you would be great in ministry. Do you want to come in for an informational interview? That's how I started working at St. Jude.
Nice.
So I worked at St. Jude in our diocese for a little over 3 years. And then I felt the call to come back home to my home parish, which is Mercy. And so that has been just a great gift because it's my home parish. It's where I grew up.
Yeah.
It's where I got all my sacraments. It's where my parents got married. It's where my dad discerned the call to the diaconate.
Yeah.
And yeah, he got ordained a deacon when I was a junior in high school.
Wow.
So it's just beautiful to like come back home, my office facing the Adoration Chapel that we went to all the time.
Yeah.
So I'm the director of youth ministry at Our Lady of Mercy. And that is what I'm up to right now.
God, what a great path. Like, I love that. I love that someone recognized in you and invited you to be a part, because you probably would have never thought of working for the church, professionally, if you want to call it that. It sounds like you were always involved and always a part of it. Because even though you stopped being an Echo missionary, you still do work for them. You still go do presentations for theology of the body throughout the region, not just in this diocese, but beyond too.
Absolutely.
Yeah, and that's the heart of it. That's the foundation to me of so much when we talk about made in the image and likeness of God. If we get that right, if we have a great understanding of that, then things seem to flow, a little bit more. And there are a lot of hot topics, that can be addressed through the beautiful teaching from John Paul II, of course, through Jesus Christ in the church. So yeah, you're busy, you're full in youth ministry, and we get to serve you in that capacity too in the Office of Evangelization and Catechesis. Okay, so let's talk about, first of all, your call to Mary's Hands. It's not like you don't have anything else to do in life, but how did this come about? Like, you first heard about it? So how did that come about?
Yeah, so I was praying a lot after the overturning of Roe v. Wade. How do I get more involved? And like you said, my calendar is color-coded. I have to have colors for everything that I'm involved in. It's about 20 different colors in my calendar. And if not, I have no idea what's happening. So I thought, why not squeeze one more thing into my schedule? And I had been talking to my youth group kids and Bible study kids. And I have a women's group on Wednesdays called Beloved. We had just been talking what are practical ways that we can get involved post Roe v. Wade? Mm-hmm. Now the call is not praying outside of the abortion facilities in Louisiana because they're not doing abortions.
Right.
So that's not really the space that we're being called into. And we had mentioned TOB earlier. I teach a homeschool high school TOB class every few months. And we were talking about abortion and contraception in one of our sessions. Mm. And we're just talking about how do we fill this need that's now this new need.
Yeah.
And so I have a friend, Michaelyn LeBlanc, who called me out of the blue and said, hey, I'm starting this thing called Mary's Hands. I think you would be perfect for it. Come to this thing called Doulas and Donuts. And I was like, immediately sold. Donuts.
Doulas and donuts.
Ready. So it's at the Catholic Life Center. It's just going to be like an informational meeting about doula stuff. And she goes, I think you're going to want to quit your job and do it full time. Okay, bye. And then just hung up the phone. And I realized that I had committed something that I truly knew nothing about because doula to me was medical.
Yeah.
And I thought, I don't have time to go to school right now and get a degree or do anything like that. But I went to the informational interview and I fell in love with it immediately based on what she called it, Mary's Hands. Wow. And so it comes out of, Gospel of Luke, when Mary goes to her cousin Elizabeth, the visitation, and she stays with Elizabeth, once they are both like, I'm pregnant, you're the handmaid of the Lord, I'm pregnant too, my baby's leaping for joy, the whole thing. And it says Mary stays with her for 3 months. And so Mary becomes Elizabeth's doula, her first doula. So it's like our first scriptural doula that we see in the New Testament. And that really spoke to me. So my confirmation saint is Elizabeth for that reason. Elizabeth, Mary's cousin, is also one of the patron saints of unborn children. And in my family, I'm an only child, but my parents had several miscarriages, and we always celebrated them as unique, irrepeatable souls. And so it just really felt like Mary's Hands. My confirmation name is Elizabeth. I just felt really called to it. And it was a practical, hands-on way that I could be involved in a post-Roe Louisiana.
No, that's beautiful. So talk about the general overview. What's it all about? When you walked in having no clue, what is it about? Is it medical? Is it not medical? Talk to a little bit about, fill us in on what that is.
Right. When I walked in, I sat in between two women who one was a retired nurse and one was a retired labor and delivery nurse. And I thought, I am in the wrong place because my medical knowledge is, I've seen every episode of Grey's Anatomy 5 times. That is my medical knowledge. That is it. And so I thought I was a little out of place. But then, Maddie started talking as the president and founder of Mary's Hands. And she's like, a doula is a non-medical birth professional that educates and empowers women in their birth experience. And I clung on to that and said, that's what I want to do. I want to be able to help women in their experience. So a doula is not a midwife. It's not an OBGYN. It's not a doctor. It's a non-medical birth professional that helps educate women on their choices of how to birth, birthing positions, comfort measures, what they can bring into the hospital, the birth center, home births, et cetera, helping them to understand the different medical knowledge, helping them to ask questions so that they're empowered and they don't feel like things are happening to them, but they have a guide and an aid that's willing to stand by them in the wee hours in the morning when husband, spouse, partner has to leave for work, that you have someone there, like Mary was with Elizabeth, willing to stay for the long haul.
Wow. Yeah. And that is huge. Why is that so important? I mean, we could guess it, but really the importance of having a doula accompanying a mother or a couple, during this time. And when do they start and when do they stop, serving that role?
Right. I think the support of the doula emotionally is unmatched. I'm working with a mom right now, and we talked about her birth goals, and she said, one of my goals is for my husband not to pass out for this one. I just want him to be there. And so a successful doula is not, I got my mom to have a natural birth, or I got my mom to do what I think is best in a birth experience. A successful doula is, they wanted these goals and we helped as far as we could. Maybe there's a medical intervention that they don't get to have the natural birth that they wanted, but we still have a successful birth experience because we're empowering them throughout the way. So a typical doula in Mary's Hands, which is how I've modeled working with some of my friends that I'm their doula now, is 2 pre-birth meetings. So an initial assessment, just getting to know mom, what they have in their life in support, whether that's material, medicinal, food. Do they need anything? Do they have a breast pump? Do they have anything like that? Do they have supportive family members, a partner, a spouse that's going to be there, et cetera? And in Mary's Hands, which really drew me here, was that it was meant for women in crisis pregnancy who don't have anyone. It's an easy way for them to come in. And in Mary's Hands, if you come to us through Mary's Hands, you get 3 doulas. So some women may come with no one, and then you have a team of 3 doulas that are willing to support you, and their whole job is to make sure that you're supported, that you have food that you need, that you have prenatal care, that you can get to your doctor's appointments. So the span of doula is pre-birth, during birth, and post-birth. So your normal model is 2 pre-birth visits, making and securing their birth plan for their birth experience, what they would love for to happen. And if other things happen, how do we intervene?
Right.
Being on call 3 weeks prior to their due date and 1 week after, because we just don't know. And then 2 post-birth visits. How is mom doing with baby? How are we adjusting? Can I help you fold your laundry so that you can hold baby? How's lactation going? Like, we had to take a lactation course. So it's just was very well-rounded. And the support of doulas emotionally is huge. But science even shows that there's better birth weight retention for babies, that there's just more like emotional connection with mom and baby, and that the fetal and maternal morbidity rate is lower. So there's scientific evidence behind doulas. It's not just a friend to hold your hand. Like, there's huge evidence for the support of doulas.
Yeah. Wow. You know, we recently experienced this in our family because our second to oldest daughter and her husband had a doula with them. And I had known about it through the ministry here, but they live in New Orleans. So when we get there, there's her doula. I'm like, wait, what? Oh, tell me. I'm trying to, I said, tell me everything that you do. But she's in the middle of, working with our daughter and our son-in-law. But she did all of that. There was a comfort thing. There was like bags of food. Can I go get you something to eat? It was a both and. It was hospitality. It was comfort. It was reassurance. Even after, the baby was born, there was some time in the NICU, just a little bit of time, that he needed. And so it was that time too of communicating. And I found that she was a great communication between the couple and the mother and the staff, like the nurse. But there was no conflict because the nurses appreciated the doula being there. Is that what you saw kind of and what you're seeing or what y'all are trained on? Because I'm guessing that you haven't gone through a live birth yet. Right?
Not yet. I have 3 moms in the works. So please pray for them. Our first one's due in September, working with someone from Mary's Hands. Yeah. So very excited about that. I haven't witnessed a birth yet, but all of the women in my cohort who have already done a birth have had such positive experiences with the nursing staff and everyone. And I think that's something that drew me to Mary's Hands and wanting to be a doula, but then kind of made me put the brakes on for a second. I remember in the informational doulas and donuts, they said, does anyone have any questions or concerns or fears? And I raised my hand and said, yes, my fear is I've never given birth. So how is a woman in the middle of labor going to trust what I have to say or trust that I know? And
that's a great place to take a pause. Yeah, we're at the middle of this show. So hold that thought because I'm interested to know that answer too. Yeah, stay with us. We'll be right back in just a minute.
We are the fog on your glasses. We are the cup to go at breakfast. We are the answer to your deadline. We are closing the deal. But more than anything, we are never being out of coffee ever again. Never. We are River Road Coffees, and we're ready to prove that our coffee is better than whatever coffee you're drinking at the office. Call us today for a side-by-side taste test so you can get powered by River Road Coffees.
Welcome back to Catholic Life as we spotlight ordinary people with extraordinary faith. I'm Dina Dow with Michaelyn McGinnis, who is, the director of youth ministry at Our Lady of Mercy Church. But particularly in this interview, we're talking about the role of a doula through Mary's Hands, which is a fairly new ministry in the Diocese of Baton Rouge. So thank you so much for being with us. Okay, so you ended us on a cliffhanger of your kind of thinking in the middle of this doula and donuts presentation is, how can I possibly perform this task and this role if I've never had a child myself? So take off with that.
Yeah.
What was the answer?
So many women were talking about, well, when I was in labor or when I had my first or when I had a section with this one, and I was sitting there going, I've never had any of these experiences. I never, had the birth of a sibling even to kind of go off of. So I didn't really know where my place was. And I raised my hand and asked that question and said, how would anyone trust what I have to say, given the fact that I've never had this experience? How will they trust that when I say, let's try this labor position or this comfort measure or, educate them on something that I've never experienced, will they trust my words?
Yeah.
And Maddie looked at me, smiled, said, stand up, come over here. And I went, oh no. And I went up to the front and she sat me next to this woman. We introduced ourselves and she said, can you just hold her hand and help her breathe? And we made a connection there. And she said, that's what a doula is. A doula is making connections to help the mom feel like you're not alone, even if I haven't been here. And there's male gynecologists and male OBGYNs and
nurses.
I didn't even think about, asking that question. They've clearly never been through that experience.
Right.
But that really helped me feel secure that if I'm feeling called to this, obviously the Lord will provide. And the training that we had equipped us so well with the continuing education opportunities as well, that I feel prepared, even though I haven't even witnessed a birth yet.
Right. And you're getting close to that too. We may have to have you back, to talk about that experience. So what is Mary's Hands Network? Who can join? How does it work? How would you encourage somebody? What does that all look like?
Really easy to get involved with. So anyone who wants to be a doula can contact Mary's Hands on their website or Maddie LeBlanc. And there's training session dates. So our training was the first inaugural cohort. So we did 3 Saturdays, one after the other, every other, for training all day. So we had 24 hours of training.
Okay.
We had a lactation class on the side, and the trainings went through this awesome book called The Birth Partner and all of the International Child Education Association requirements for doulas.
Oh, gotcha. Okay.
Comfort measures, laboring positions, breastfeeding, helping mom through labor, helping get partners and spouses involved, because I can show a birth position like a squat, but if I can get dad in to help mom, they're having a bonding moment that I can just show them and then let them be a part of.
Yeah.
And then, all the different types of materials, we have a doula bag that's stuffed with all sorts of stuff for comfort measures, pain relief. We learned so many things. And so, it's super easy to get involved with because you can sign up for a training on the website. And the training, we've had, I think, 3 so far, and the next one is coming up in early November. 3 consecutive days.
Great. Yes. So it's not too late to kind of even come and see. Is there going to be kind of a come and see before that training? Is there an opportunity, or should they just call?
I think they should just call or go to the website, and you can get all of the information there.
I was thinking too, what you were just saying is the different activities that the doula does, the roles and positions and opportunities. I know with our children, our daughter, it was the same thing. He had known some things ahead of time to where he was with the doula aware of what our daughter needed at the moment and say, well, should we try this? Yeah, let's do that. And so they would change positions or the water bath, things like that. To help comfort and ease, the labor, because it's called labor for a reason, right? Yeah, it's labor. But I think too, having the opportunity for someone to be there, to be a hands for me, but also to advocate, and then really maybe ask for something that I may not necessarily know that I actually need that, right? Do you see that, as you're accompanying this mom right now and these moms, how do you anticipate her needs?
Right. So when we go through our birth experience plan, if you had your ideal birth, let's lay it out, start to finish, what does it look like? And then we start going into what happens if this, and then we take down her desires. if they say you need this medication? Do you just want medication administered, or do you want an explanation of everything that's happening?
Yeah.
Do you want us to remind you
Yeah.
to ask for explanations? Because in the heat of labor, I can only imagine.
Oh, you're not thinking. Yeah.
You're not thinking when they say, do you want PIT? And then just start. Like,
Right.
do you want an explanation? What is Pitocin? You know, and all of that kind of stuff. And I was talking to a friend recently who got married, and she said, I would love for you to be my doula, but I just can't have a natural birth. And I think that's a huge misconception about doulas, is that doulas are non-medical birth professionals, not non-medical natural birth professionals.
Right.
You can have a doula for a C-section. You can have a doula for an induction. You can have a doula in a hospital, at the birth center, at a home birth, because they're there for the birth experience.
Right.
And obviously, you know, labor and positions look a little different if you're having a water labor versus you're having an epidural.
Right.
But the doula can help with all of that, which I think is a misconception that if more people knew, I think doulas would be used more.
That's actually a good point of clarity too. Are there any other misconceptions you think you'd like to clarify? Like, so it's not necessarily always a natural birth, right? It just depends on the experience and what's happening. I mean, I'm sure a lot of moms choose that, you know, initially. And some of us choose that, but it was not out of our own choosing because the baby's coming really fast.
Correct.
Right? Yeah. And so it's like, okay, this is what we're doing. Right?
And that's what a doula is.
Yeah.
It's not mourning the birth plan that we established.
Gotcha.
It's being flexible to say, okay, we have to pivot and we're going to now do this and everything is fine because you have medical safety that is here for you.
Yeah.
We're not going to do a natural birth if it puts mom at risk. And if baby is going into fetal decels, which is in distress, we're not going to keep doing a natural birth. So I have a mom I'm working with right now that her two goals were, I want to have a natural birth and I don't want my husband to pass out this time.
Which is funny.
And she can't have a natural birth now for medical reasons and she has to be induced. And so we've just scratched that part of the birth plan and we've moved on because we've already prepared for this in our pre-birth visits. We've said, if anything like these things were to happen and we can't have a natural birth and we have to be induced, what are your desires then? So she's already made a birth plan for that. So we just scrapped the first page of our birth plan.
Yeah.
And now she's ready and she feels confident that she's going to have an experience that is supported not only by us and the medical staff, but by her desires because we've already been through the scenarios.
I also think too, planning for the what ifs with someone else along with your medical team is good because it's easier to contact you. You don't have to, you know, get called back or whatever, but everybody has all this information. And things can always go different than what you expect enter into labor, right? Like we had nothing like this 28 years ago, nothing at all. But hearing about it and thinking about those experiences, it would have been good to have someone else because I didn't know sometimes the questions to ask or should ask. Not that it was anything bad. I just needed clarity. Like you said, do you want more clarification on this or do you want this? But that moment where you're like, do you want this? I'm like, I don't know. I hadn't thought about that. I don't have time to think about it because my contractions are 2 minutes apart, 1 minute apart. You know, I don't, okay, sure, you know. But to have someone to walk with you, pre-plan everything, because preparation to me sounds like that is a win-win for everyone. So there's no stress coming from the mother, right, who's experiencing this physically, and also to the father or the spouse or whoever, the family that is with that person, the friend. Like you have that mediation and that way to be able to make them feel comfortable if something changes.
Right. And we've been with moms. So the nursing staff, depending on how long labor is, might change 8 times. And the nurse is just coming in, doesn't know her the way that we know her.
Right.
So we can hand them a copy of the birth plan.
Yeah.
But we know her as a person. They're trying to get to know her as a patient, but also they're dealing with a lot of other patients. Us as the doula, we're just focused on this mom. And doulas can help, spouse, partner, father, family as well.
Okay, so we've kind of clarified if someone would like to be interested in becoming a doula. What about if there's a mom or a family, they're pregnant? How do we find someone? Like, how do we find a doula? Like, doula.com. I mean, I know it's more than that. You know, there is a website, it's CIOBR/doula program here at the diocese.
Yes.
But how does someone find someone for that?
Yeah, so Mary's Hands Network has a doula network of all of the women from my cohort, from the past 2 cohorts, and as the cohorts continue, the goal, Maddie's original goal when she started this, we started ours in June for prep, for our first inaugural cohort, and her dream was to have 100 doulas through Mary's hands.
Wow.
So I believe ours had about 18, and one of the other doula programs had about 21. So
you're getting close.
we're amping them up, and
Yeah.
so if you're interested in having a doula, you can find options through Mary's hands there, but also your provider can also recommend different doulas, because there's different doula programs and cohorts as well.
Gotcha. What makes this one so different, if different at all? I mean, is it because you can incorporate the faith in it? I mean, is there a limitation on that without other doula programs? Or may not be faith-based? I mean, tell me a little bit about that.
Yeah, I think, on our intake form, when we're having that original pre-birth meeting, we ask, do you have religious customs? Do you have faith-based customs or preferences, religious preferences that you want? And the 3 moms that I'm working with right now all happen to be Catholic. So that has been, one of my comfort measures is I want praise and worship on in the background.
Yeah.
One of my comfort measures is that, in case something goes wrong, I want to have a priest on standby so that we can have a baptism if needed. All different sorts of things like that. I don't think in your normal doula program, you're going to have the freedom for that, though you would still ask for religious preferences if they had them. I love being able to share my faith. And I think people know that when you see Mary's hands, Mary, I think your first option is probably the mother of Jesus. So it's a little bit faith-based. We serve women of all religious preferences. So it's not just Christian or just Catholic.
Correct.
But when you ask why Mary's hands, you're going to get the story of the visitation, and you're going to get the story of Mary and Elizabeth supporting each other through this experience. And I think there are women that are going to come to Mary's hands specifically because they want that. Even if they don't know the Lord intimately, they're going to meet him through encounters with us just by how we're witnessing through the doula program without even having to evangelize in that way.
Yeah, with Mary as your model too. I mean, and it's very comforting. It's very approachable. And it just seems like there's just a comfort. I just hear hope in it. Everything that you've said, I hear hope, I hear comfort, and I hear a sense of peace with that, because there could be some anxiety that goes. There's a lot of anxiety that goes with birthing the baby, even though it's been done since the beginning of time.
Right.
There's still an opportunity to ease that, and that's what I hear Mary's hands offers, that comforting hand, as the Blessed Mother did for St. Elizabeth. So thank you so much for everything you do, specifically though for Mary's hands. If anyone wants more information on how to obtain a doula, or you want to become a doula yourself, you can go to diobr.org/doula, DOULA-programs. And you can look it up on the website. So thanks so much, Miss Michaelyn McGinnis, for being with us. It's such a joy to share in this vineyard with you all of our time together. So thank you. Thank you for being with us on Catholic Life. Until next time, may God bless you and grant you his peace.